Hey everybody, this is Space Marine Steve, and you can find me here at Hyperspace Hobbies with my very good friends Ian here on my right and Mike here on my left. And today, how are you two doing? Mike?
So far, I can't complain.
So far, I can't complain.
I mean, there's a lot of smoke outside, but
yeah, there's a lot of wildfires and stuff like that in our area, and so it's affecting our air quality, which isn't particularly awesome. I know my wife and I wanted to go for a walk today, but we couldn't do it because it's too smoky. But Mr. Ian, how are you doing?
I'm doing demonically good.
Whoa.
ooh.
And that is a great segue into our first topic today. And that is just digesting a little bit further what the Demon Codex is kind of like. So Ian here has played Demons for how long again? Decades, so a really long time. And you've now had 30 days. So we're calling this the first 30 days with Demons.
Essentially, first 30 days.
Yeah, and you played a bunch of games, mostly against Mike and I here over some frosty bevies and good snacks.
Yep.
And so we're going to kind of go into that, and we're going to dissect it a little bit. And then after that, we are going to talk about the Leagues of Votann and Games Workshop's James Workshop's Apology Tour.
Yeah.
The apology of Votann.
The Apology of Votann. So those are the topics we're going to jump into today. So welcome to Heroes from Hyperspace. All right, Ian. So you have had Demons now for 30 days. You've played how many games with them?
I think about 6. I think it's fair to say I've had 6 games with them. Yeah.
Okay. So you've played against a variety of opponents. I know you played against Space Marines twice with me, obviously.
Yep,
and then Mike ran you the gamut with, what was it?
I switched it up. I played Tau. I've played Chaos Marines a couple times. Did I do anything else than that?
Eldar.
No, but the Chaos Marines.
Oh, yeah, no, I played Eldar too. Yeah.
But Chaos Marines are so varied, playing 2 different versions. I mean,
they can be very different, even with the same units.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
They're very much like Space Marines in that. Like, you know, if I play Crimson Fists against you one day and then Space Wolves against you another day, like,
Totally
it's absolutely a different army. So let's dissect it a little bit. So you've had time now to play it. Last episode, we talked about some of your initial thoughts on it. And honestly, like, it was kind of like hot and cold. Like, there was some really cool things from the book. But then there was also some sections where we were kind of like, like, is this going to work? We're not really sure, right? Like, we talked a lot about that. So
yeah, I did bring up that it required a lot of play testing to fully bring out the strengths in the Codex. And it didn't take as long as I thought it was going to take with the play testing because a couple units really started to shine so much brighter than other ones. And that's a problem with this Codex. It's a bit shallow in how you can do your list building, just because there's no legions or chapter tactics. It's just, that's it.
But
This is the model. This is what it does. So you can easily go through all the troop choices and pick whatever one for whatever occasion. The thing is that some of them currently, for their point cost, for their toughness, for their damage output, really shine in that category so much more than others that the other ones just get shelved.
right.
and it became very clear very quickly. There's a short list, essentially, of units that they're just better than the other counterparts, so don't take them.
And there's no way to be like, oh, I'm taking this certain chapter that makes them more effective because they have this weird... No, that's gone. There's nothing to that. So it's essentially like what I've currently been playing. My typical list is Plague Bearers in the back, holding an objective and doing actions if need be. Plague Drones, just generally moving forward and being a nuisance. And working well with the Warp Storm table's ability to negate leadership and make your charges better.
They have made a huge impact every single game. They're an absolute gold star unit.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. To complement the forward-moving Plague Drones, 2 squads of Bloodletters in Deep Strike. Because if you start negating leadership, then your charges are easier in the midfield.
Or if anyone comes, even dares come in your zone, Bloodletters are 100% charging them.
Exactly.
Which is not good.
And they don't, I know I brought this up and you guys haven't agreed with me, but I find that there's a lot of pillow-fisted units in the Codex. There are some that way outperform and make up so much for these other units that it essentially doesn't matter, and that falls on deaf ears. But like even 10 bloodletters charging something, sometimes the results are pretty bad. And it could be just dice rolls, but whatever. But I've had them charge some things that have been like, 21 attacks, hey, didn't do a thing. Great. Well, luckily I have this other unit, and you do the charge, and they also biff it. It's also very charge dependent. So that would be a part of my typical list. And then besides that, it's a squad of flamers, which are unbelievable in every way. They're the best unit in the whole codex, which I will hear no disagreement here.
No, they're the best, yeah.
And
they are unreal.
And then one of the big beasties, one or two of the greater demons. And Be'lakor is a superstar, even though this is after the errata, and they've not allowed you to have him unlock everything on the Warp Storm table. That totally 100% doesn't really matter.
No.
It doesn't. I mean, I had that option, and I was like, this is so awesome. And when I used it, essentially nothing happened. So I don't feel like that is messing up my game plan, but that's just essentially my opinion of it.
There's still just a couple key Warp Storm powers that you're just always going to use anyway.
Essentially, yeah. Yes, yeah. I played the Lord of Change, played Bloodthirster, played Nurgle. I've not played the Keeper of Secrets just because it doesn't fit my playstyle currently, but the Lord of Change impressed me quite a bit. I know I put in a lot of work in a couple of games. In the last game against Mike's Chaos, it just devastated a part of the board, in combination with some flamers to make sure that the mortal wounds and the flames really just delete Mike's big bad.
Oh yeah,
on
just
the front lines.
First turn, delete. It's amazing.
Yeah, with the ability to just have them advance. And you go, oh, they advanced. They rolled, let's say they roll average of a 3. They're now moving 15 inches. They shoot 12. If Mike puts something on his front lines,
if you put something within
and
6
I put
inches
my
of the
stuff
front
on the
lines, they're getting
then
flamed.
they can get you. Yeah, and if Be'lakor's there, then he can teleport them, or any psyker, I guess, essentially can teleport them. Another thing that I found was really good is the Fate Skimmers. They essentially replaced a Demon Prince. I'm not really happy with how Demon Princes are currently performing. When you compare them point for point for damage output to, let's say, that Fate Skimmer, Fate Skimmer moves so much farther, even farther than a Demon Prince with wings. It has better overall saves. In my opinion, it has better overall saves. It casts the same amount of powers. It has a pretty decent gun on it, and its close combat isn't terrible. The Demon Prince has great close combat, but its armor saving combat is a 5, and this thing boosts flamers, and it's just so speedy. I just wanted that speed in my list, essentially.
You can get it to where you need it to be.
Yes, to hit those flamers that have pushed so far forward and done an aggressive kind of flame. And as long as you're like keeping conscious with your flamers and going, I'm close to terrain, or I know I'm going to get charged, so let's be in terrain instead of having somebody hide a unit behind it and get a charge through and you not having line of sight. So that is like for sure a tip I would give anybody playing flamers out there. Don't just try to put them in a position where you know that flame is going to hit max. You got to try to put them in a position where the counter charge, where your opponent is looking to charge these guys, that you're not close to terrain. And if you are close to terrain, put a guy in it so that you have visibility through it. That for sure is like a big deal.
I mean, don't worry about trying to hide them. They have a 3-up save to shooting. Who
Yeah,
cares?
hiding
They're not
them-
being shot
hiding them
dead.
does nothing for
They
you.
can't be shot dead.
Yeah, and terrain essentially does nothing unless you want to have them be in there just so they can set to defend to get +1 to their hit roll, which, I mean, they're strength 5 in combat.
For some
with
reason.
3 attacks a guy, so they're actually pretty decent in combat.
So I have some questions for you. So you've now played against like a variety of opponents, like Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, and then a couple of Xenos factions as well. So I want you to tell us, one, where you think the book excels, against what types of opponents, right? So for everybody out there, if you're at home and you're like, oh, I haven't had a chance to play demons yet, and I play, Imperial Fists, I'm just pointing at this Land Raider we put here on the coffee table. So let's say I am playing Imperial Fists, like, am I going to struggle? And let's say you play Tyranids, right? And you're wondering, am I going to excel, right? So what armies from the scope of information you've gotten so far you think are going to excel against demons, and what armies do you think are going to struggle against demons, and why?
For sure, I feel if your army can have an impact in all stages of the game, so in the shooting, in the psychic, and in the combat phase, if you're strong in all of those 3 areas, or at least have an angle to do some damage in each of those areas, then it's going to save you when it comes to that bloodthirster that you're going to see a lot with that wound cap. 8 wounds max per phase. So if you can chip away in the psychic phase, you can chip away in the shooting phase, and you can try to get in there with combat, which I don't recommend, but it's a way to finish him if he's low and you think you can get it done. So that ability, I think, is really strong. If you're something like Tau, for instance, when we played our Tau game, you could shoot him all you want, but you're only doing 8 wounds. And you're not going to get in combat with him because it's a loss. And you have no psychic powers. So then it's, just prolonging the amount of time he's on the battlefield and having the ability to influence what's happening. I also think a strong close combat against demons is pretty important because in general, their saves in combat are worse than their saves to shooting, which is part of that demonic save thing. So being a little bit more combat focused is really strong, but that would also depend a little bit on what you're up against. So if you're like, I'm going to be really combat focused, and I just play 18 flamers, and you just go, rats.
So let's try and pick out some armies for everybody sitting at home. Do Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines struggle?
So I can really simplify this. If you're shooting focused, you're going to have a bad time. If you have a strong combat phase, you will do okay against demons. You have to be able to compete them in combat because that's where they're going to do their damage predominantly, minus flamers. Flamers are amazing, but there's not really anything you can do about them unless you have a way to avoid Overwatch.
I have a response to this. I respectfully disagree with you.
Okay.
I think it's actually dependent on how you... I think it's actually dependent on how you do your damage. And so, for example, when I've played against demons twice now against Ian. I also played them at an RTT. And I lost my games against Ian. However, they were very close, right? And I beat demons at the RTT. And I found that the more volume I had in whatever respect, like whether it was strength 4 shooting, strength 6 shooting, no AP, 1 damage, whatever, but volume was king. If I could hit them with a lot of attacks, that was perfect. 3 attacks with a Thunder Hammer, garbage, right? 10 attacks with chain swords, awesome. Why? Because all you need to do is get the wounds through, because most of the time their demonic saves are like 4-up, which means you just have to make them flip enough coins, is basically what it is, right? So like when I played against you, my Gladiator Reaper was like overperforming, right?
Great.
The one time that thing's been good.
Actually, that thing's been good in for a whole lot of reasons. I'll get into this, but
it did do great in our game.
Yeah, it's done great in a bunch of other games too, but volume is king. So against the demon player, if you can point that Gladiator Reaper or something else that just churns out the volume, even though it's all strength 4 or AP 1 or whatever, and you're like, yeah, it doesn't touch Armor of Contempt, but it doesn't matter because they don't have that, right? So I think how you do your damage is important. If you're running around with 1 melt-a-gun and being like, yeah, I'm going to do it, that's not enough, right? And I think that kind of weaponry, while awesome against something that has Armor of Contempt and a 3-up save and whatever, it is not awesome against something that has a built-in non-negotiable save. And I just think volume is really key. So if you have an army that does that, great. If you have an army that doesn't, well, then you've got to look at some things.
I agree. Volume is the best way to deal with them, but it depends if you have it or not.
Yeah, well, they have to make those choices in your list building, right?
Yeah, you have the option to do.
Not volume. Everybody does.
Yes. Another thing I think that is effective is not overpaying for like armor, essentially. It's not like they're going to melt through your armor and that you don't need it. It's having more small units is probably better than paying for a single large unit that'll do, half the amount of stuff. So like Terminators are great, but if they can get caught up in so many bad situations, whereas if you split those points into just take Havocs or something and keep them in the back, because demons have to get to you to do their damage. They have to be fairly close.
Mm-hmm.
So if all you did was sit, I'm sure when Guard comes out, they're going to play these gun lines, and demons are going to have a really hard time. Like Leagues of Votann, before this this knee-jerk point switch, Leagues of Votann would be like, you cannot play demons. Like, there's no point. Because all of that instant wound stuff just completely cripples whatever toughness you have.
I'm not
like
sure.
You said, the toughness was in that coin flip, right? It's that 50%. You can dodge a last cannon on 50%. Fantastic. A lot of these things have really high toughness. And as soon as that toughness is removed from like auto wounding or mortal wounds even, probably is going to be really strong, then you remove a bit of that toughness. It's not a 2-up armor save. It's a 4-up armor save, but it's toughness 8. So if you can bypass one of those things, which is the only thing you can bypass technically, is the toughness.
Mm-hmm.
You should try to.
I'm not sure anyone could have dealt with Leagues of Votann before they had their points bombs.
No, for sure, no. But it definitely it would instantly scare anyone away from playing like a couple big bad beasties. Like, you're not going to be like, sweet, I'm going to play Mortarion, and then 40% of the people at the tournament are Leagues of Votann, and you're like, he's so dead.
Yeah. Now, we are going to talk about that, but before, and we should move on to it. I think the time is right. However, before we move away from our demon conversation, what I would love to hear is like, you kind of made an assertion that, the demons needed playtesting. We weren't quite sure at the end of our last episode. But this episode, what I really want is like, now where do they fall? So let's, like everyone uses the tiers like S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, right? So let's use that tier system. Like, where do you think in the grand scheme of things they fall with? Like, I think right now, some of the like other like competitive podcasts and content groups place like things, Harlequins and Tyranids are up in like S tier, A tier, and then all the way down at the bottom are things like Imperial Fists, Raven Guard, and other things like that.
Current Guard, I guess.
Current Guard are somewhere
okay, yeah.
in like C tier, B tier, I think.
It's still kind of...
But that's like the 300 guardsman list, and you're like, I mean, I guess so, but no. Anyways,
that thing's hilarious.
It is hilarious, but that doesn't mean the army is that, right? It means that list is playable, sort of.
It would be awful to play.
Yeah,
it's so boring.
Yeah, to play and play against. I digress. Where are the demons based on like us? Like we're gamers with beers and pretzels. Where is it?
I'd say probably B tier.
B tier.
Yep.
They can tango with the people in the middle.
Yeah, I think it can be a little bit better than the average. But that's only because it plays the game in such a different way, and their secondaries are really easy. If their secondaries weren't the way they were and we all had to choose from a pool of secondaries, they would be quite a bit lower. But I feel their secondaries are essentially, are you playing the game? Okay, you get some points. Are you playing a different part of the game are you on the tabletop? You get some points. Are you killing some stuff? You get some points.
Yeah.
They're just handouts, right? They're like the Necron Purge the Vermin, where it's just like, oh, you have your points. Here you go. Here's some points.
Yeah. I mean, scoring in Warhammer, for the most part, is broken down into like 3 things. Like the first one is, be somewhere, right? The next one is do something, right? And then the last one is kill someone.
And the be somewhere, they do really well.
Yeah.
They do really well.
Their board control and board presence, as good as it gets.
Yeah.
It's like Dark Eldar style forward push, and you go, am I ever going to make it out of my deployment zone?
Yeah.
And
Except
turn
for they're
2
still
happens,
there.
And then you go, I don't think I'm going to make it out.
Yeah. And so with that be somewhere, do something, kill someone, like those are how you score points in Warhammer, those 3 things. And when a codex has a secondary that doubles up on like something you have to do in the primary mission, like be somewhere, like if there's some that are like stand on this objective and score points. That's a primary objective. And then you'll read in the secondary thing, stand on this objective and score some points. And you're like, wait, what?
Mhm.
So I have to sit on this objective for both these things. I mean, okay, I guess, but seems real easy. That's because it is real easy.
It is, yeah. Their secondaries really shore them up.
Yeah.
essentially.
Demons score by killing your opponent.
Yeah, demons score essentially by being on the table and
Yeah.
and killing your opponent.
And then they get just primary points on top of that for
That-
just playing the game anyways.
That being said, if those demon secondaries didn't exist and you have to start flipping through the book, you realize how difficult it could be if you only had those books, the actual book, because you're like, oh, infantry, man, infantry are really expensive. I kind of need them to like be in the front lines and be doing something. If they're in the back popping banners, it's not as it's just not as good.
If they had to do actual like regular everybody actions, they'd be in trouble because their infantry are so expensive. They're very good, but if you had to just dedicate them to doing actions, you would be in a bad place.
Yeah.
And I would really like to highlight, like right now we're playing in the Nephilim war zone. And inside that, like, for those of us that might not know, Warhammer puts all of its seasons of matched play now into war zones. Like we were in the Octarius war zone for the first Grand Tournament booklet, really. And then after that, we moved into, Nockmund, and now we're in Nephilim. And in Nephilim, we have a set of secondaries. But we live in an ever-changing world, and when we cycle war zones in, 4 months or something like that, who knows, right? You might get the exact same, and they might be changed.
They could be completely dropped from,
Right.
from my B tier.
Exactly,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Or you could get some that are even easier somehow, right? Like,
Let's maybe hope not.
yeah, yeah.
Unless the scoring's different and everyone gets like a couple gimmies. Yeah.
But who knows, right? So I'm just saying that, secondaries are one of those things that is fluid because of how it changes through the seasons of play, right?
For instance, if Leagues of Votann have practically impossible secondaries, then it's not that bad.
Yeah. Then it's
They're
not
going to
that
go,
bad.
they're going to
That's true.
obliterate you, and you still might score enough points in the early game that you can last till the end game, and you're okay.
Yeah.
Like they'll blow you to pieces in turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3, and then you're like, okay, but I've scored so heavily in the first couple turns that I don't have to worry about it. I feel like the Demons got handed some pretty solid secondaries, and the way that they work with the game is confusing for your opponent.
Yeah.
Because everyone goes, I got to zone this guy out. I'm going to screen. Okay, put these guys like 9 inches, and then 9 inches from that 9 inches. And then you go forward and you reduce everyone's leadership by 2. And then both those guys' leadership bubble of 9. So guys that are 18 inches away, which has happened in a couple of our games.
Every game.
Guys that are 18 inches away, all of a sudden that 18 inches becomes 7 inches from each guy. And there's a pocket there. And you go, Bloodletters, get a charge, and they happen to not get a charge in my game. But still, it was cool to see that even if your opponent tries to manipulate what they can do to try to counter you, you can always go, oh, I can put a little extra on it.
Yeah. And I think I say for myself and really everybody out there, thank God for infiltrators, because those little bad boys say no. No.
Yeah,
If you're a
they-
Space Marine player, never leave home without 5.
Yeah, at least always bring money to one
That is absolutely, as a Space Marine player and another Space Marine player, take 5.
All the time.
As someone who
Every
plays
game.
against them all the time, yeah, obviously.
take 5.
If
Incredible.
you're, if you're not currently taking 5, and you look at us and go, I don't want to take 5, you guys are idiots, just try it out. But don't play them as like, they're not damage. They're not out there to do damage.
No.
They're not out there to close ground and make combat. They're there to just zone your opponent.
Yeah, they're only there to carry around their little radios.
That's it.
Yeah.
They
So,
hold the board.
They
like
hold
you
the
wouldn't-
board, and they're very good at it.
Yeah.
So, all right, we put demons into B tier. So let's talk about something else now, because this has been just circling the internet like crazy. And I am very excited to hear what the two of you think about Games Workshop and how they have handled the Leagues of Votann.
You mean James Workshop?
James Workshop and how he has handled the Leagues of Votann. So, let's talk about that. So, the Leagues of Votann. Games Workshop released this fun little video. And this fun little video is of their fictional, like, Christmas time character, James Workshop, the, like, owner, founder, and big idea man, I guess, so behind Games Workshop. And it was him, like, answering a telephone, being like, what do you mean they're broken? I don't understand, blah, 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 blah. And it was quite campy and quite funny. And
they're new. Aren't they supposed to be good?
Yeah. They leaned into it. They really did lean into it, and it is a signal that Games Workshop knows, right, what their stuff does when it gets put out there. Like whenever I hear someone say, like, don't they know how good this is? It's like, well, yes, they do know, right? Like, they know how good stuff is when it drops. They know how oppressive some of the rules can be.
Don't you want to buy the new models?
Do you want to buy the new models?
I like winning. I'm buying all the new models.
All the new models. So yeah, and that is a very pervasive idea, right? So out in gaming communities, whenever something new comes out for Games Workshop, it is kind of assumed that it's going to be the next best, strongest thing.
And by assumed, you mean it is.
Not always. That there's some things that have been released that are not great, like most of the new Space Marine vehicles when they dropped. Like the Gladiator was overcosted and all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah,
but
GSC
for the most
had
part,
a hard time
for the most
too.
part, when they release something new, the new model is criminally undercosted or has some rule that influences the game in a bad way.
Yeah. So, but this is something very new for Games Workshop. This is the first time that they have like kind of called themselves out in a way, and then two, like preemptively apologize. We've all seen the posts from like Warhammer community where they're like, sorry, we didn't really think it was going to be this way. Here's a quick fix. An errata's going to come out soon. But this was a preemptive strike. Like they put real work into this. This wasn't just some random PDF that they tossed up. Like they pulled that dude from his other job. I imagine he has another job. They pulled that dude from his other job, threw him in a suit, sat him in the chair, and made him say this thing. And then they released that, and that is way more work.
You don't think the banning from Germany had anything to do with it?
Yeah, that was good. I mean,
way to go, Germany!
I think they were. I actually read a little bit more into that. They were banning it because it hadn't had an errata yet. Essentially, that's why.
Works for me.
But in the community took it as they were banning it because it was absolutely broken and everyone could see it.
It was pretty obvious.
Yeah. But whether Germany banned it because of that reason or the other reason, I don't care. It was a great idea.
Yeah.
It was a great way to essentially grab GW by the ankles and shake them upside down so that a couple coins fall out of their pocket, and then they go, uh-oh, this is actually messing with our money. And that's the only real way to get through, is to mess with somebody's money. So.
It worked.
Mm-hmm.
We got a hilarious video that I thoroughly enjoyed.
And a knee-jerk correction to a huge issue that was going to win tournaments and tournaments and tournaments until the first errata came out. And the Demon's errata dropped. Practically nothing changed.
Yeah.
They clarified malefic weapons, which was good. And the armor contempt issue, I think. Didn't they?
Yeah.
Which was perfect.
They said how you've interpreted it is correct.
Yeah, and it made sense, but there's always going to be some guy that, wow, it's like this.
Yeah.
When obviously it's not.
And the +1 to armor save, which demonic saves can never be modified in any way.
They fixed that, which was
They had
nice.
to put an asterisk.
Yeah.
This does affect.
Yeah, I mean,
it
as
does.
intended.
That means that's actually good. We're getting off topic here, but that means that's actually not a horrible warlord trait anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's a...
Really?
I'm not
Well,
sure
whatever it is, that means that it's because we were literally having a beer and talking about this. We're like, man, that really is useless.
Yep.
But now, like it actually does do the thing it's intended to do, and great,
Which is great.
So let's get back to this Leagues of Votann
Erratas
thing.
can be a helpful thing if your codex doesn't splash and everyone just cries out in pain, which is essentially what happened with Votann.
Yes, a little bit. Now, I'm kind of getting the feeling that the two of you think that GW did the right thing here. Am I right in thinking that
I agree.
GW did the right thing?
You could say that, yes, but I would also counterpoint that they've been doing the wrong thing for quite a long time. And I'm happy finally that it's come out, and I hope that further reactions to other codexes when they drop and people go, something's really wrong with this. We want faster reactions to this because, like, are you listening to your playtesters Do you have playtesters? Is anyone that makes the codex actually playing the game? All these things are questions that I think everybody that plays this game wants answers to.
Yeah. Now I actually have the whole, you have playtesters, why aren't you listening to them? Wouldn't they have warned you about this? I do have a theory. Okay. Now I am not a playtester. I know you can find me at Play on Tabletop, and we do work with GW from time to time, and there's a lot of great things that come from having a relationship with them and being a member of Play on Tabletop. But I am not a playtester. I have no secret knowledge. They don't tell me a thing, probably for good reason. They don't tell me a thing, right? I have a theory about why I think it was done the way it was. And my theory is because of all of the global issues that we've had over the last couple of years, supply chains being disrupted, broken, slowed down. Personally, I think that they did listen to their playtesters, but what they didn't want to do was send them the rough version of the codex, wait for their verdict, change, and then send to China for printing. I think what they did is they wrote it, got it as good as whomever wrote it, and then they just hit send and be like, print this thing now, right? Because they have to orchestrate global release.
Isn't that an inherent problem in itself, though?
It totally is, but I'm just offering a theory on why it is the way that it is. Because people are like, well, why would they change all the points? It doesn't make any sense. They haven't playtested any of this. I think that they actually had all these points locked and loaded, all ready to go before the codex even came out. I think that the playtesters said, this is nuts. This is what it maybe should be. You should bump up all the points for sure. And then they went, oh, okay. They went ahead with the release, put the book out the way that it was printed, which was sent probably a year and a half ago, right? Because it probably has to have that kind of headway now, right? So it was sent a year and a half ago, but they didn't want to give it to playtesters a year and a half ahead of time. So they gave it to the playtesters 6 months ago, get them to playtest for a couple months, give them feedback. They get the PDF ready, right? Then the social outcry comes, and they're like, ooh, this is really bad. They make the video, and here's these points that we had locked and loaded and ready to go already, right? We're fixing it now.
My problem with that is, why don't they just have 4 people on the GW payroll that playtest before the rules even go out to the major playtesters? Because I'm sure they send them out to thousands of people that all playtest and bring back some info and get some numbers. Have people in shop. Could you imagine creating a codex for Warhammer, never playtesting it, and then sending it out, and then getting a response in 6 months? You should have people in the shop, in the basement of that shop. Hire me, I'll go there. I got nothing to do.
That's expensive, right? So
Is it?
But the playtesters,
Is it more expensive
to my
than
knowledge,
shipping a dozen books out and then having to ship them back and then ship new books out and then having them to ship back and then recorrect?
But they don't
But
ship.
they
them
don't ship
in
them.
and
It's
out.
just PDFs.
So-
Yeah,
digital.
but even then, it's all time. It's time.
But the playtesters' time is free.
Yeah, I don't
But
know if they.
essentially,
I don't think
having
they
like
pay
8
them.
people in a basement could have you not have to update everything on the internet. Make a full codex that you know you're going to have to. Like, you could essentially shave an errata off just by having a couple people in the basement of GW cranking out a couple games with the new codex.
Maybe.
Even 1 or 2 games with a book like that, you could probably tell.
I like the point you made, Steve. Though it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, like I'm just saying, like, this is like purely logistics, right? Like, because this is there's also like a corporation doesn't function like the way that sometimes people think it does, where you've got 10 people all sitting around a boardroom and they're all running the company. Like, corporations often run in silos, right? And they're usually sometimes even in different office buildings. Like, there's GW legal department that's trained to do one thing. There's distribution, design, models, marketing, testing, whatever it is, right? Like, all of the content creation, websites, all of that is done in silos. And from working in like a large bureaucratic system, like I work in the education system, right? I know how working in silos can sometimes just affect the overall rollout of things, because people go like, what is this? I don't understand. I was away on Tuesday, whatever it is. And so I don't want to make excuses for Games Workshop. They're a huge company, right? And they do make, in my opinion, some mistakes, right? Do I think they're trying their best? I do think they're trying their best.
I agree with that.
I think they're trying their best, and I don't think they have found quite the right system yet. But I also think there's also business-minded people and creative-minded people kind of doing this sometimes. There's people with math being like, we can't pay the playtesters that because over time it's not worth it. We did the math over 5 years and we lose too much money when these people will do it for free. Right? Like, and then the creative person is like, well, I guess so. Sure, we'll do it. That I would love to just have someone playing Warhammer all day. Yes, but that person's not making us any money.
Yeah.
Right? And while it sucks to think of it that way, because I agree, like, you would get a better game system if, like, the three of us were just given, you know, X amount,
if we all got the Leagues of Votann Codex and poured over it, in 4 hours we could write a report of what the problems could be.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think that would have been the same with a lot of the codexes. Right? Some stuff,
totally.
Playtesting
some
is.
stuff sneaks
Yeah.
through, right? That's just how it
Yeah.
goes. Some
Yeah.
stuff sneaks through. It also, I mean, if your playtesters are giving you feedback and you don't have the time to react to it, because you're already on a schedule that's from the powers above, or saying we need to release this right away, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just saying having in-house a little in-house check could probably save them a whole lot of time.
And they might.
We all know the rules. It's new,
It's new.
it's good, and it's cheap.
Sell it.
Yeah. I sort of agree with that. Sometimes that's the case.
It's
Sometimes
always
it's
the
really
case.
not. No, it's not. It's not, because like Space Marines have had lots of units come out that are just utter garbage. Does everybody remember the Fire Strike Turbo turret? It's not called that, but the Fire Strike
I
turret.
got him one for Christmas the other year.
Yeah, did you ever use it?
Yeah, I think I used it for Christmas one year.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it was promptly shelved.
Yeah, I have
It's a fun model. It looks cool, but it was mostly just like, oh, this thing looks cool.
6.
That's a
I
mistake.
bet you do.
I have
That's a
6 of
mistake.
them.
Okay, so
I bought them. Okay, let's not talk about the fact I have 6.
I think what we need to do is have a budget tester for Steve. I don't think GW needs the
No,
help.
yeah.
We need to help Steve. A budget tester, make sure he's spending his dollars. You could have bought eliminators instead, right? Like another unit that
I have a
nobody
lot
bought.
of those too.
Yeah.
But anyways, I've tried them. Doesn't quite work, but they're a brand new model. They work great, right? So it's not a hard and fast rule. Yes, especially when a new army comes out.
Yeah.
It usually is pretty spicy, but not a hard and fast rule. But all in all, like, I want to give Games Workshop a lot of grace because, you know, they make the game I love.
I think
Right?
they handled it really well.
Yeah.
I laughed at the video. I have no idea. I haven't played against them.
Yeah.
But there's been a gigantic bump in their points,
Yeah.
and
It's huge.
obviously it needed to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, their PR was fantastic.
Yeah.
The reaction to everything and the way that the community reacted to them, everyone was like, finally, they're taking a look at it.
Mhm.
And they did it in a funny way.
Yeah.
Which is
No, I
great.
think
That's
it was
how you do it.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you do that. Exactly.
That is how you do that. They came at it with the right attitude, a little tongue in cheek, right? A little bit tongue in cheek, a little like self-critical in some ways, but also like playing it up like it was like, I'll just give them 2 up invulnerable saves. I don't know what that does. I don't know what it means either, but like I'm doing it regardless. So they did do it the right way. It was a lot of fun to watch. The points fixes are going to be a big deal. Like, it's like 25% less stuff. Like, it's a big deal.
I do really want to add, though, I can't wait to actually see somebody play those Leagues of Votann with the Ninja Turtles set
yeah.
up.
Yeah, that looks
Because
Yeah.
that made me
That
so
was really
happy.
good.
It was amazing.
I've also
I
seen
want
them-
somebody do that, please.
I've seen
Please
them-
play me.
I've seen them mod it out with Skaven heads
Yeah.
and
yeah.
and goblin heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are having a lot of fun, a
Which
lot
is
of
great.
creativity in making them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Ninja Turtles one.
That was my
that
favorite.
Hecatron Land Fortress. or
Yeah,
whatever it's called.
the land fortress, the turtle van.
It looks so much
Turtle
like the
Man!
Turtle time.
Yeah.
Turtle
Cowbunga,
time.
guys.
So, with all of that being said, you know, we think they did it in the right way. Should they have done it now? Like, should they have waited for all the models to come out? Because some people are kind of upset because of how early this nerf has come to things that people haven't even played yet. Should they have maybe waited a
Well,
little bit and then done it?
We know already that they had these point bumps planned.
Yeah.
Like we know how
We've
all
already
these
kind of
books are coming
established that.
out. The mission books have been rolling out every 6 months. They change the points to try and balance things. They know ahead of time. They already knew. They planned this in advance. And we've all suffered through it already. Some new armies come out or things change and things are too cheap and then they're immediately fixed in the next roll. But we have to wait for several tournament circuits, and then people just get steamrolled by these way too powerful codexes. Tyranids was a horrible culprit. Tau was awful.
Like, I remember when you played Tau.
Yeah.
You only played 2 games, and you were like, this isn't fun for me to play.
Yeah.
Showing up to a game and absolutely stomping your opponent to the ground almost immediately.
I want to play the game.
Yeah, you want to play a game. Going in and being like, oh, on turn 1, I remove like 25% of your army, and then on turn 2, you're more exposed, so I remove 50% of what's left, and you've barely touched me. And you go, oh, I won the game. I got 95 points. Like, yeah, you know what? Because I saw you play a couple of those Tau games, and then you stopped playing Tau. You're like, this is stupid. This is too easy to win.
Well, I felt like it wasn't fun to play. Like,
Yeah,
I
it
want
wasn't
my
a
opponent to
challenge.
have fun. It's a game.
Yep.
It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah. There was even a game where you and I played, and my only goal was to not be tabled. And I got tabled.
Yeah, it didn't
Like,
work.
it didn't work. I was like, I don't even need points. I like ran away from the objectives. I hid behind buildings. I kept like half the army in reserve until turn 3. I was still tabled. So like, what?
And there's a problem.
There's a problem with
bad
that.
design.
Yes.
But maybe they've registered now that that's been unpleasant, and James Workshop will maybe make some more appearances, which I would love. I think
I'd
that's
love
great.
to see him again.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And so the Leagues of Votann, they have one very like intense rule that's baked into their system, and it's one of the reasons why there's been so much outcry. And it's not because they have unfettered access to a turtle van. It's because
I wish it was.
it's
Or April
because
O'Neil.
baked. Is because baked into their army system is an auto wounding mechanism. So
Oh God.
yeah, I know. So instead of, most of the time you'll roll to hit, and then you'll roll to wound, and then your opponent will roll to see if they save. And most of the time there are 3 rolls that happen when you're trying to inflict damage: hit, wound, save.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes after that you'll have either feel no pain style rolls or damage rolls or whatever. But now you subtract one of those, and it's just hit roll and right to the save, right? And as a player who, needs his toughness 8 or toughness 9 Land Raider, I need that layer of defense that skews the math in the tough thing's favor. Same with like the Great Unclean One and the
Demons.
toughness 9, right?
100%. That's how
Toughness
demons
8.
It's built into the design of the game. I can
Exactly.
appreciate it in small pockets. Like, I can see that maybe stratagems or like very specific abilities that would make that happen, but just anything doing it?
Yeah.
Like, it even as what we were talking about before with flamers being so oppressive.
Oh God.
Having a big unit skip a major part of the phase, like, oh, you auto hit. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay, roll for wounds. It can be, if you jumpstart that, it can really compound a lot of
Yeah,
damage.
100%.
And the problem with that is being wounded is a representation of how many points usually you're paying for one of those models. So if it's a Land Raider, you pay a lot of points to ensure that it has the toughness that you're looking for to try to survive what you're going up against. And if like auto hitting a Land Raider is great, I'd love it, but you still have that absurdly high toughness to try to mitigate that auto hit happening. But auto wounding off of a hit puts a whole new wrench into the whole thing.
And not just like on 6s. Like, so in the Codex Space Marines, there's like a stratagem where it's like, oh, a Primaris unit can auto wound on 6s. Oh, okay, sure. It's 6s to hit. Who cares? You're only going to get a couple of them.
You can't rely on it.
Yeah, so you can say it doesn't become reliable. Where now, like Leagues of Votann, because judgment tokens just kind of get tossed around all willy nilly, like they sling them like hamburgers at a diner. They just get like
Candy on Halloween.
yeah.
Isn't there a character that just gives 2 out? To
Yeah,
2
they're
different
regular.
units?
They're like regular captain guy just points at 2, and then like a unit of yours does an action, judgment. A unit of yours kills something, judgment. I'm looking at 2 dudes, judgment. It's just so easily given that by the end of the game, and there's no range on it either. Like you just have to see you.
We didn't have to play test it to know it was too strong. And
Yeah.
it's not just us.
It's everyone.
Also Germany.
Yeah, the whole country just
Thank you,
knows.
It didn't take the invisible, non-existent GW playtesters in the basement
Yeah.
of the. They didn't have to. As soon as everyone looked at it, we went, "Uh-oh, that's not going to work."
Oh, big
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah. And so much so that like people that did the math on it, so like let's say you take just a unit of their basic guys shooting like the bolt guns or whatever, and shooting against a target that they would regularly wound on 6s, so something like a Land Raider. So when they shoot, they do on average 500% more damage than they would usually have done to a Land Raider. So that means that 5 of those Hearthkin warriors, or the basic guys, 5 of those Hearthkin guys do 500% more damage than 5 regular Space Marines to that Land Raider. So like, and they're cheaper. It's so like,
Once you start looking at the points, you go,
you're like,
yeah,
this doesn't
doesn't
make any
seem right.
sense, right? So they
And-
built it into a system that is army wide too. It wasn't just one unit. Now, if it was one unit, I'd be like, all right, it's this one unit. Sure, that's wild, but all right. But it's like no matter what you have.
And we're talking a lot about their damage output, but their durability is really good too. Their void armor is really strong.
Yeah, you can't reroll wounds against them. Period. And on top of that, they have armor of contempt.
As an Iron Warriors enthusiast, I can say it's very strong.
Yeah, it's very strong. So, we'll see what happens in the coming, in the coming months as the new models get released and people play them a lot more. And I know a lot of tournaments, and as a tournament organizer myself, I know I'm following this is, if you got to have the model to play the model. It's got to be available. So I'm not going to let people run a bunch of rhinos as turtle vans and right like this. So there's none of that going on. But
we're giving Votann a lot of flack, but I am really excited to see a new army on the table. Squats back is exciting. I'm glad that they were, we hope, fixed before they're even a problem.
yeah,
So with the points jumps, the power hopefully will be kind of in line with what it should be, and that's great. I can't wait to see him. I can't wait to play him.
I haven't actually held any of the models, and the models look cool. It's cool to actually have squats represented. I mean, we're calling them squats, but I'm sure they don't really want to be called squats anymore. They want to be called Leagues of Votann, but
Oh, that's such a mouthful, though.
Yeah, the anybody who was waiting for squats, I'm happy for you that your
Absolutely.
army came out, and I'm glad that your army didn't come out to be so oppressively good that everyone instantly hated them. Now they have a chance to be like, oh, you're playing them and you won because you played well, instead of just being like, oh, well, he played Leagues of Votann, so of course he won.
That
Yeah.
nobody wants that.
Nobody
wants
wants
that.
that. You want to play. You want to be known as being good at playing the game.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like, oh, he took the auto win list.
yeah. And
Pat on the
two,
back, way to go.
like on top of that, also you don't want to suck people's like fun out of the hobby that maybe they could be just starting, right? Like so.
Oh, that's the worst
That's
thing
the
you
worst
can
thing
do.
you could do, right?
Yeah.
So, but I know that it does happen where people say things like, "Oh, like you're playing Votann," and they're like, "Oh, but I just started. Like I've never even played in a tournament. But I just want
Yeah.
to build and paint models." And they're like, "Yeah, it's so broken." Like, don't do that because you never know. Like, what if Leagues of Votann came out and it was the one thing that they liked because their buddies just getting into the game. They're like, "Oh, this brand new army, play that." Like, be careful and be kind to who it is that you're talking to out
Please,
there. Right?
Hyperspace hobbyists, be kind to your new players.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
great.
Be
That's
gentle.
great. That's
Let
great.
them have fun.
Yeah.
Be kind to them, but also stomp them into the ground.
Yeah, don't do that.
This is an official message.
What? You're in a tournament.
Oh, tournament's a different thing.
Flip
If
the
they came to a
table.
tournament, No, yeah, no. Stomp them into the ground of the tournament.
Yeah,
But
there you go.
if you're just playing a fun pickup game, like, teach them, be gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
And-
if they're new.
Yeah.
I loved going and playing. I remember a last tournament I went to, there was new players there, and we played a game, and I was going for top spot, so I played my usual. I played pretty hard, and then at the end of it, me and the guy sat down for like 15 minutes and just spilled over. Hey, what do you think I could have done? Oh, this is good. And he was like, "Oh, I didn't know you could put like 2 5-man squads of Space Marines in a Rhino." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I think that was for sure what you should have been doing. You should have been playing a 10-man squad." Split him into 2 5-mans and put him in the Rhino. He's like, I didn't even know that was possible.
And it's so good.
And I was like,
Yeah.
that's my pro tip for the day.
Pro tip for the
Yeah.
day.
That and
Combat
try to
squads.
screen me out a little bit better. And he was like, I'll take those 2 tips and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you can meet people that are new to the game, and even if they have fantastic, powerful armies, it's still a learning experience. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we all play this game, and even if we're veterans or we're brand new, we usually leave the game and learn a little bit.
Yeah.
Every game.
Every game.
And if you don't, then
Well,
you are the master.
absolutely. So,
Or your head's right up your own butt.
yeah. On that very graphic note, from all of us here at Hyperspace Hobbies, this has been a great night of talking some 40K, having a couple bevies, and hanging out with friends. So, see ya.
That's it?
That's it? No, that's not it.
Well-
We need a sign off.
Next time we're going to talk about what I should bring to LVO.
Well,
kinda
yeah, you're
fun.
going to LVO.
I get to go. You losers aren't coming. so.
Loser.
See, this is what we're talking about, of being nice to people. who
Yeah.
play the
But they're
game.
not
I'm like-
new. I can be mean to them.
Yeah, I'm like furthering my education, and that's why I can't go. And you're
Yeah,
like,
I'm
loser.
really proud of you, you loser.
reading books. You nerd.
Yeah.
Nerd.
Exercising that head meat.
Oh man. Okay, well, from all of us here at Hyperspace Hobbies, have a great night, everybody. Good night. See ya.
Sayonara.
Peace out.
Later.
Later. Bye.